check. Apparently hit the live button. I hit the go live button. Welcome guys. If you're just chiming in, I'm re-engaging with my streaming setup here on YouTube. So this is very much a test stream, just to get my self familiar with how I do things. I've done this for quite a few years, but I haven't done much recently because it's been a busy year and I'm in the middle of renovating a whole new studio at a new premises. So the 3 or so years that I spent streaming on Twitch came across to YouTube, and very shortly after that I had moved and started to renovate, and I'm in the process of getting some plans to move that forward. In the meantime, I've been doing a lot of art, anything from Warhammer, which I did a previous stream if you want to check that out. That's in the live live playlist anyway, or it might not be a playlist, but anyway, you can see that if you're interested in Warhammer. And I've done a lot of, I don't actually have any of my samples here, but I've done a lot of 2D illustrations. If you want to check out the links that are probably on my page, I haven't really thought this through. You can also go to Story by Osmosis on Instagram, Story by Osmosis, and there you can check out, I'll put it in the chat there, Story by Osmosis on Instagram if you want to put that in. That will get you access to the history of the artwork that I've been doing. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll find me setting up a stream very early on in the story of that. That was a long time ago now. That was back, I think that was just before COVID actually. And I started out streaming and gaming and unboxing and getting into Cyberpunk 2077, going big on that and digging in role-playing while streaming. All along, while knowing that I had to commit to doing art and getting into traditional art and finding my way through that. So you'll see in that Instagram history of me converting and passing through comic art and then into a lot of illustrative portraiture, a lot of the characters, pop culture characters in that, which is what I'm doing here today. Actually, I'm using something that a subject that I really like, and an actor I like, and a character I like, while oil painting. This is technically my 3rd oil painting, and the one that's just above me here is the first oil painting I've ever done, which was as it says there, the Illithid of Baldur's Gate. So if you've played Baldur's Gate 3, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you've done any D&D at all, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. That was my first oil painting. So it was, in fact, I think it was pretty much my first painting ever since I was, actually I did one lesson of, which actually, this reminds me of the lesson I took, which was, it may have been oil, I don't even remember now, in a class as a part of a work excursion once, not the current job that I have in retail and licensing. And we just did this painting course where I painted a cigar and a glass of cognac and a bit of smoke coming off the cigar. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And never went back to it. So the Illithid above me is the first oil painting or painting that I've really set out to do from my own initiative on a subject that I thought was quite interesting. Again, in pop culture, so not some sort of abstract or ethereal topic or just finding my way around. It was a particular character from a particular story with an emotional connection or an experiential connection that I made with it. I've played Baldur's Gate 3 times through now, different characters, and I really enjoyed the experience. I can't say that about many video games that I've played 3 times over differently, but so that was a really cool experience for me. And I just thought the body of the Illithid itself is pretty daunting and pretty creepy, But at the same time, from a technical point of view, from a painter's point of view, it's got a lot of subsurface scattering. So if you look up close on a good computer, or when you're playing Baldur's Gate 3 of an Illithid, they had such fantastic cutscenes. If you're into D&D type games or whatever, and you haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 yet, you gotta give it a whirl. It's worth the price point that's commonly associated with that. So that is cool. And that was my first oil painting, and that was like 2 years ago, and I was planning on doing an oil painting every month just to push myself further into it. And I spent more time looking at it, studying it, and then still sort of, geez, that audio is wild. Doing a lot of comic art and a lot of digital ink, a lot of digital comic ink as well. So you can look through my history of artwork on the Instagram page if you want to see that there anyway. So I'm going to do a bit of oil painting today. Sorry about the long intro. I don't particularly like it when other people do long intros into videos, because it's about doing something, not talking about it. I'm just going to pull my palette out here. I just kept it in a little plein air paint box. It's actually part of this really cool plein air. I think it's called the plein air. I think it's got a different name as well. It's this American made wood painter's box that you can see on my profile camera there. We can look at that another time when it's more pertinent. I've just taped my watercolor canvas A4 page down onto just a standard bamboo desktop easel here, and it's actually a little floaty because it's sitting on a baseball underneath that. Because the lighting and the camera angle that I'm currently have is happier with that angle there. I normally have it further up towards me, but I've just laid it down so you guys can see it. The camera is reaching over the desk, so I've just got a few things where I'm just like, you know what, I just want to do a stream. I just want to get back into the feel of things, sort out a few of the technical issues that's required to do streaming at all, which includes a lot of mucking around with audio, etc. And the camera setup, etc. So I just thought, look, I'm not gonna try to get everything perfect. I'm just gonna stream. The paint that I'm using is Winsor & Newton. Nothing crazy. So you can get this stuff anywhere. It's one of the most common oil paint paint brands around. They have an exceptional paintbrush series as well that's very commonly used for professionals or people who really want top-notch sable. I am not even using a Winsor Newton brush. I do have these. I've got El Cheapos. I also have just a couple of Warhammer paintbrushes. So this is an AK Interactive. If you've done Warhammer painting or whatever, this is just a synthetic paintbrush. I mean, every time I've heard a modern painter doing something, they have used all sorts of different methods and different paints and oils and stuff. Really, where I'm at right now is just doing something, moving, getting going. So I pulled the easel out of my plein air box, which is just a glass panel here, and I used, I'll show you what I used, because this is it's a little bit of a deep dive or a how-to or an inside of what I have done. We've got ivory black, burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow ochre. You can see the graduation. Cadmium red, yeah, which is this one up here. I did put in some yellow, cadmium yellow, of course, titanium white. So those, if you buy, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you buy, I think it's the 10 paint set, it will cover the Windsor. It will cover all those options. I'm just going to check. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. So, yeah, if you buy the 10 color paint set of Windsor, it's only going to set you back, I don't know, $30 or something like that. You don't even have to buy that. As long as you're buying oil paint that isn't really suspicious, you'll be fine. And you can see here, I've got ivory, black, burnt. I'll just get the names for you again. Okay, ivory, black, burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, white, and then I've supplemented some to get some of the other colors here. I have the cadmium red and the cadmium yellow, and then you'll see a splash of the green and the blue there. That is, I believe I used the darker blue, phthalo blue, I think. I don't think I used the ultramarine, I can't remember now, and a drop of viridian hue, this green that came in the set, and that was that was actually just for CAVILLRINE's eye there, and it's kind of, you put a little bit on the plate, and then this blue goes a long way, I'll tell you that. And the oil I have that I'm using is just the refined linseed oil. I just read that the clearer the oil, the less yellowing it does over time. If you've just got oil on hand, just use it. Don't worry about going, oh, I can't paint until I get the right oil. Okay, so this is what I've done so far on CAVILLRINE. To get the structure of this, so I am skipping a little bit ahead here, just because I needed to do this in my own time rather than fluff around on the camera live, trying to figure it out. Obviously, things went fairly well structurally. This is the same process I've used for anything that's had a need for a likeness. So anytime that it's been very important to me to capture the likeness of an actor in the portrait itself, I have found the exact frame that I want to use from the movie or the poster or whatever it is, because learning the process and the hands-on functionality and the skills, you need to spend most of your time doing that, I think, sometimes, before you really have to build everything from the ground up. Like I think sometimes, in my opinion, and it depends on who you are, but your process as an artist, no matter who you are, the process that you're doing needs to be enjoyable, because that's what art is. It's a process. And if you want to really focus on utilizing the medium well, then I think you kind of need to skip ahead from the structural requirements and move closer towards the painting and get into the middle of it. It's like when you play a video game, like an exhibition match or something in soccer, or an exhibition fight in a boxing game, or a sports game. You just want to, like, let's just get in and let's just play. The teams already know what they're doing. They're all structured and everything. I just want to kick the ball around. I just want to play the sport. I want to do a couple of 3-pointers or whatever. I just want to get in and get going, and not have to worry about developing the character and from scratch. Yeah, I mean, like, if you really want to play basketball, you're not necessarily going to spend all your time doing history, reading up on the history of basketball. You just want to get the ball in your hand and go down on a hoop and throw it and sort of get yourself into the middle of the game. So the equivalent of me doing that is finding the image, and what you can, there's a couple of different options. You can scan it. You can scan it in and print it out at like 10, 15, 20% opacity. So it's like a grisaille, which is French for gray, which is the gray under drawing, almost like the pencil of a comic book art, the pencil that goes down and just gives you the structure of what you're going to do. And then you spend however many hours and days next after that doing the actual paint and focusing on that. I did this with pencils, colored pencils, and it guarantees your likeness. So even professional artists who are doing likeness licensed portraits for posters and movie posters and for marketing and all that kind of stuff, they actually have to get the photos of the original actor or of the model into the drawing, so that you might just see a couple of lines up here. That's still some of the original like pencil, which was me just doing digital line art over top of the photo, and I call it notes. It's basically where it's literally just penciling over top of Henry Cavill in this case. But the thing is, you don't necessarily want to be like, you don't have to like be full like charcoal rendered photographic, you know, grisaille, where it's literally just like a black and white photo made out of graphite or charcoal. You don't have to do that. You can do all the outlines just to get everything structurally. To me, that's a very common type of structure for building a portrait. Foundation from painting on top of it is just having the outlines. I have heard that it is also a bad habit or just the wrong way to build the structure of a subject by doing outlines, because when you're doing a realistic sort of looking painting with very realistic rendering and structure to it, even if it's a bit glammy like this, a bit impressionistic and a bit Hollywood, it is still real anatomy and real representation of the actor. I've heard that it is not good to do outlines because reality doesn't have outlines. It consists of light and dark and rendered volumes, right? So they do really, some professional or artists that are accomplished will say, you know, all this needs to be done, you know, chiseled in or rendered in black and white in pencil, maybe not that detailed, but it needs to be rendered thoroughly in grayscale before you paint over top of it. And I think that's a very valuable process to look into and to try. That's the grisaille, the GRISAILLE, something like that, which is French for grayscale, I think it is. That is a way of really building quite a serious structure to what it's doing here. But find out what works for you. For me, I don't need a full rendering to build on top of it. Would it help me structure and improve the pace and the speed at which I'm building the painting? Yep, because all that detail is already on the page. If I really wanted to, I could just actually scan this shot in black and white, print it onto the paper, and then paint over top of that, almost like a color by numbers thing, except for it's color by grisaille, it's color by rendering. So I could do that and then just focus on the painting, which I really could have done. It's just that I'm a little bit more advanced. So once again, if you look at my Instagram, you'll see that I've done quite a few portraits already in colored pencil, meaning that I feel relatively comfortable with what I call notes, or just doing, you know, oh, there's a little thing here, I'll just put a line in there for where that wrinkle is, and across the bridge of the nose, and then I'll go and outline the eye very specifically and make sure that that's very accurate and to proportionately correct, because that's very important. And I'll just work around all the notes on exactly how his ear is built and where all those components are. So I'll put down these sketch notes on how it's to be structured. Some of the wrinkles, some of them I won't deem important, or I won't go too overboard with putting the pencil in. and then I'll do that. And then the rest of it, when it comes to painting, is about me applying myself to the visual that I'm looking at off the side, and eyeballing it and painting, eyeball and painting. So I recommend that you have your reference image if you're doing likeness. If you're doing something like this, you're using this video as a bit of a guide to you want to use my process as a process for yourself, then I would recommend having your guide or your reference and your visual aids and images off quite close to where you're painting. The reason for that is when you look away and you change angle, that can sometimes distort the image in your mind, the persistence of vision. So you look at, if the image is sort of over there and you kind of look at it on an angle, because it's the flat 2D image that you're referencing, it kind of looks distorted from that angle, and then you turn across here and you want to paint, you're making it more difficult for yourself. So try to keep it flat on your reference. I've just got my iPad here with the shot from the movie there, and I'm basically just comparing my work to that, and I just start somewhere. I think, where did I start? I think I started on the eye, like I've always have. I think since the past, I've been doing this on and off for over 10 years. I think I had a 5-year sabbatical actually of not doing any portraiture at all. And I always start with the eye because that's my emotional connection with this. Where am I going to go tonight? Just look up at the camera there. What could I improve next? Maybe I'll start on the neck a little bit, just to actually, I've got a bit of a mess going on up here and some dirt, which is my hand touching it. So I am going to drop in on some of the lighter tones up here. Music is sponsored by 2 streamers free of charge by Fixed, F-I-X-T music, which you can get on YouTube. They are very kind and generous and provide lots of music strike free for streamers under no commercial purposes, but they do have commercial licensing as well if you want to contact them, and you also get permission. Go to their website if you want to get permission to use their music for free streams, such as what I'm doing here, and you just have to send them in. You just sign up and you're away. I'm going to be doing something probably a little strange that you haven't seen. If you've watched quite a number of other painters, you probably haven't seen them quite do what I'm doing tonight. And that is just dipping my brush just straight into the oil and dropping that oil on the palette. And moving around in this basically it's kind of like a landscape of paint and tones and colors and shades and all sorts of stuff going on here. Why am I doing it that way? I am actually responding to something I saw someone else doing that I felt right about. I felt connected to how they did it, how they were doing their work. And that artist is Roberto Federici. Let me just make sure I got that name right. I actually do have an iPad set up on here. Is it Roberto? Is it Federici? There's two artists that are very Riccardo Federici. I actually have a screen link set up here. I'll just hit screen link and see if it starts working. See if it works. I might crash my computer. Who knows? Screen link. See if that. Maybe not. Okay, don't worry about it. Riccardo Federici. He oil paints. He's an Italian comic artist who oil paints his comics. He draws them and then oil paints over top of them. So he's very much like Alex Ross, except Alex Ross has done comics in paint. I think he actually uses. I think Alex Ross uses gouache, like a water-based paints, not oil. From memory now, I'm sure he knows how to use oil as well. If he hasn't, I thought it was gouache or something. But Riccardo Federici does comic book art like constantly, as in penciled and oil paints that pencil. And I did not know it was oil paint at first. I thought it was because a lot of comic book artists who dabble with paint are often using gouache or acrylic. I don't know why. I think when you water it down, it's a little hard to control, but it creates some really cool movement and allows you to build the colors up and render a bit at a time. Like it doesn't go overboard too quickly. And then I think the big one is that they like that it dries quickly as well, and allows them to correct things and move on. Maybe they don't like what do we call it on in oil painting? I think it's called prima. It's just gone blank. A lot of stuff's gone blank right now because I hit broadcast. That's why my mind's gone blank. Basically wet on wet. So I'm painting wet on wet, where I just put paint on top of paint on top of paint, and blend and rebuild and morph and change and develop and fix and repeat. So I saw Riccardo doing this comic book painting that the whole time I thought it was gouache. I was like, oh, it's very nice. I'm going to follow him because I think the way that he builds up the colors is just a great way of doing it safely and effectively. It's like not over committing too much too soon to heavy color. So he'd let the wash that he puts on the canvas or the page that he puts over top of the pencils, just like, you know, it might be a light sienna or even like a light red or something that he's a wash that he's put over it. It just has like a global. So I'm a academic. I'm a trained animator as well. So global lighting or provides like final gather and bounce lighting in a way that lets them utilize that global glow. It's like someone standing in an alley next to one of those hotel motel neon lights that provides this red global glow in that alleyway. There might be some really sharp moonlight or white neon lights from somewhere else that just catches the edge of them, but the rest of them has this subtle glow of red. So what he will do is just go and wash the page in a very light probably watercolor, I'm guessing, acrylic, just as the base. I've heard that before because a lot of guys that do, I think it's gouache they use as a watercolor base coat on top of the canvas to fix the canvas, to make it flat, to make it stiff, and then they'll sand it back a little bit to smooth it out a bit as well on top of that gouache. So a lot of guys that do oil painting will paint a canvas in white gouache, I think it is, or I think there's another word or another name for it. Matte. I don't think it's a medium. I don't think it's like a matte medium or anything like that. But yeah, they paint a water based paint on the canvas itself as a starting point, so that it just becomes a solid, reliable, dry, grippy surface for the oil paint to go onto. And anyway, so he'll put that down, and then he will you can still see the pencil coming through it perfectly, loud and clear, probably a little softened, and then he will start painting light, sort of, you know, fit like body, like a base fill. So if you're painting Warhammer like me, this, you'll go and do fill it in yellow and then silver, and then later you'll come back and you'll do some layer coats over top of that to like give it a bit more character and a bit more rendering and a bit more depth. And he builds up that rendering and builds up that volume by adding more lighter shades and colors over top of that. So he builds up slowly without rushing into it and burning himself and the image on being too overzealous and too I mean, that's often my problem too, is like when you're keen to start building this image, this character up and getting some things in the way, underway, and you just end up going a little too far too soon. You build up the layers. I did these small card, like playing card size sketches of a couple of characters. I did Batman, Wolverine, and Last Ronin or something, like the Ninja Turtle. Actually, it was like just a Ninja Turtle in black and white, so that you could change it to whatever color I wanted. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to give watercolor a go and watercolor paint. This Ninja Turtle, and I think I might have used gouache paints that I had on me at the time, and yeah, I just lathered it up, slicked it down with a ton of paint, and then another ton of paint and another ton of paint, and I was like trying to render, and it was just this opaque mess that kept building up on the canvas on top of the sketch, and then I lost the sketch, and then I had to work with whatever I had left, and it was such a... It just got out of hand it escalated real quick. It got out of hand really quick. Okay, I'm just, I'm currently not quite getting the shade that I want, so I'm just gonna keep on poking around. So I've gone backwards and forwards over this yellow area. I'm trying to I'm trying to get some sort of orange, which is not a really favorable skin tone, to be honest. But I just want to get it in there so I can start to move it around and work with it a bit. He's got this warm light on that side of him. This is pushing it now. This mustardy color is just almost offensive for a portraiture artist to use when you're not doing something that's exactly an abstract. It's just like supposed to be like a realism. It's got this mustard yellow on the face. Heck with the rules. Ooh, I mean, I do like brazen tone. We'll talk a bit more about that later in terms of about bringing something unique to your work. So anyway, I painted this Ninja Turtle in acrylic of some sort and just ruined my day. I ruined the Ninja Turtle's day. And I didn't touch painting for a while because there just seemed to me just some sort of fundamental misunderstanding about how it was supposed to work out. I hope you can see some of it. I'll just move this palette up a little bit here, guys, just so you can see the joy of oh man, this is just an absolute universe. The joy of discovering colors and building it and identifying it. That is just an endless discussion, which I'm sure we'll have. This is also the good thing about wet on wet, is that I can come in here now and then just start blending back into the color I just work with. We could also probably talk forever about strokes and stroke patterns and the management of like how we're actually, what we're creating here. I've done most of my portraiture in pencil, as I said earlier before, and I had a stance system where I think of one core key word the whole time, so that it's constantly reminding me what my my process is, what my goal is to achieve the texture that I'm painting or drawing. So I would think of a word that I felt described either my movement, the motion of my hand gesture and how I'm painting or drawing, and or the actual substance that I'm, or the look that I'm trying to achieve with that. So I would say I'm using, you know, tornado stance, for example. So my hand is in tornado stance and I am doing like swirly, constant, like, you know, biro pen type swirls. You know, you used to muck around with biros, just doing constant swirls or something like that. And I would just think tornado, tornado, tornado while I'm doing it, just so that I didn't just suddenly just drift off and start using a different stroke that did not get me the result or the look that I was going for. So that's what I call my stance system. I have not heard anyone else use it. No one else necessarily inspired me to do it. It's just that I just had heard of samurais using different stances on sword fighting, and I just also thought, well, there's certain things that I just remember and repeat as I'm doing this kind of work. So I kind of felt like, well, maybe there is some significance to the way that I hold myself, or I operate in order to achieve the effect, and therefore the overlap of those two things sort of gave me my stance technique. I I had been using that terminology for years now and sharing it with people. I've repeated it quite a few times to my I guess boredom, but it's a good thing. I do it for you. I share it for you guys, for whoever is watching it and learning. Nobody's on here tonight because I have not been public much at all. I just need to do this to get comfortable with the process again and make sure that the mute button is off. I kind of veered off onto some things that are happening in the present, but I did want to sort of bring things back to where I'm at now. I'm just going to move down into the eyebrow here because it was also a bit of a mess. Identifying colors, you know, as well is a tricky one. Like, what you think you see in the reference image might not be what the color that it really is. So you will be challenged on that. It's not, don't get too upset if you keep getting it wrong, because then we might end up talking about your identity as an artist and the fact that you might be seeing something that's worth exploring. You know, it really depends. Like I kind of find like when you're getting into art and doing art and whatever, core motivations and reasons in that are a lot more powerful and relevant than we kind of give credit for. Like, there's people who just want to do art because they just need to do the process and they like the outcome and they like the results and they like the interaction and the hands-on and all that kind of thing. But that doesn't mean they don't have a motive for doing it. It just means that they might not analyze it that much, and their motive for doing it is just directly something that they enjoy doing that it makes them happy. So it's the simplicity or the approach or the brevity of analysis and insight into someone and the reason why they do it doesn't necessarily mean that there is no motivation or identity embedded in that somehow. It's just not really discussed that much. But in terms of discussing, you'll have, let's just like go with the example of identifying colors and tones and values. So light and dark, and then the types of colors you're looking at. So you look at a reference image where you're imagining, you're trying to remember somebody's face. You've got a very photographic visual memory, or you're looking at someone in reality, or you've got a photo of them or an image of something that you're referencing, and you look at a part of that person, like maybe like the pupil, right? And you go, oh, they have a blue eye. Or they tell you they have a blue eye. So you put blue down and you're like, that doesn't look like you at all. And then when you get up close and you look at their eye, it's like, oh, well, it's a lot greener than that, or it's grayer than that, than what you thought. So the other thing too is that the white balance of the room that you're in, even though your head is not a camera, it is affected by the ambient lighting in the room. So, you might be painting at night under some fake lighting, like I'm doing right now, and then you get up in the morning and you come back to do your thing, and you notice that the colors are a little different in the morning, and with the daylight sort of helping you out. There's just reasons. There's reasons why you look at your reference and then you go to paint it and it's not the same. And I can't exactly tell you why that is, because your eye, you might actually see more color than I do. Just the way that your eye is structured. I think there was like some averaging research that indicated women actually see slightly more frequencies of color than men do on average. Not saying it all in all. Just saying that the research found that women see a bit more frequencies of colors, like a wider range of colors. But I think it was also particular around the magenta red range, which is interesting because it's very common fashion color in women historically. And also beyond that, you not only like do they sort of often subliminally gravitate towards it, but actually quite expressively. Like the amount of times I've heard a girly girl or a girly woman go, I absolutely love pink. And like the cubicles I see around the office where everything on the pink, keyboard, the desk, the desk mat, the headphones, the decor, everything is just pastel pink and hot pink mixed together and all this kind of stuff. And like it's all in. And then the person who sits down is kind of like goth or something, and it's like, okay, so your environment, you love pink, but you're black and white looking. So it's really, to me, it's like, okay, I can go along with that. It's like a guy, it's like a redneck saying, I just love Bigfoot trucks. And it's like, okay, well, I might have guessed that because it kind of fits in. Like, can't say that, for sure you like racing along the Everglades on a propeller boat or whatever they call them, hovercraft or something. But there it is. You just so happens that you do. But yeah, there's some sort of research a long time ago saying that actually I think I was told by my senior lecturer when we're talking about color, saying that research revealed that women see more color frequency in reds and that. Anyway, this whole point is just to point out that different people, humans, will have the ability to see different amounts of color. Some people don't see whatever blue or green or something like that. They can't. So they use colorblind settings on a video game or a TV or something like that to help them identify where certain colors will get sort of will hide details, unfortunately, because they can't see that frequency. So they put on that settings that. So that is just a part of when you look at something that you're trying to paint and you've got a slightly different visual sense. We can't take for guaranteed it's going to be the same as what anyone else is seeing. And then you look at that reference and you go to put it down, and then when you start painting, it's a different color to what you thought it was. Sometimes you just calibrate, right? You just go back, say, oh, for some reason, and this is me constantly, like all tonight, just going, ew, that's not the color that goes there. It's not dark enough. It's not light enough. It's not pink enough. I don't know what it wants. The amount of times where I've gone, I don't know what you want. Like, are you brown? Is there pink in there? What do you want from me? Or just I'll just tell myself for some reason, just subliminally, I'll just go, no, it's not. Surely it's not that dark. It's not that dark. It's not that grey. There's more to it than that. There's more color in it. It's not that dark, surely. And I will just keep going backwards and forwards over and over again, working on that color that I'm trying to put down somewhere, and I'm finding out, oh wow, that was way over here on the spectrum. I did not think it was that dark. I did not think it was that grey. I did not think it was that subtle. I thought it was more prominent. And so you're like trying to render parts of the subject that have a different. Just gonna sketch a little line in here. I'm supposed to have. Yeah, and so that's a thing. Just be prepared to work. Give yourself the time. One of the things that working on Warhammer sort of taught me was you need to be prepared to fix stuff, because they're just gonna make mistakes. It's just very easy to make mistakes, and it's actually not that hard to fix them up, really. If you just take a breath and you don't react to the circumstance, like the angry guitarist and who starts punching himself when he gets frustrated, you have to count the positives. So if you've made some progress, you've made your drawing better, you've made your image better, that day, to a little bit, you've made some mistakes, but you've made some errors, you still moved things forward. So you have to count that as a win, as progress. I'll do this thing where I keep on dabbing the brush on the paint and moving it around the paint until I feel like it blends that paint together and gives me the shade that I think it should be. And also saturates the brush, right? So when I put the brush down the page, it doesn't accidentally like squeeze some other paint out of it that I wasn't intending for it. That happens plenty of times, and yeah, my way of fixing that is I rotate the brush and tap it until it sort of mixes the paint together that's underneath it, and then both mixes the paint and also make sure it blends it right across. And as always, like, you can just sort of push over some of the color and the work that's in what you're doing, and fix it up anyway. Put some opaque paint over top of it, fix it, erase it, correct it. Oh yeah, and just if I go back a little bit to Riccardo Federici, I was amazed that he actually was using oil paint because he was building the colors up so subtly, like he was using watercolors, but they were just watered down oil paints, so oily, I'm guessing oily oil paints, and that's just basically diluting the pigment down with the major bonding agent or the substance that's used to thin it out and move it around. I guess oil's not really a bonding agent so as such, but when you put oil in dry pigment, it binds it in a way. But yeah, oil is your liquefier in this circumstance, and when you put too much of it in there, you don't get much pigment. If you don't put too much enough in there, you get these really chunky drabs of paint, which is very textural, very textural. And also for me, it's kind of scary, particularly after the story I told you with destroying a Ninja Turtle with acrylic paint by putting very opaque, non-watered down paint on top of it. I found too that I think the acrylic or watercolor paint that I used on that Ninja Turtle as well, not only was it not watered down enough, but it was also it dries very quickly. So it's great if you're doing Warhammer, you want that paint to dry quickly, set so that you can move on to the next layer, and aging it, weathering it, and adding layers, color and contrast, and all sorts of stuff so you can keep moving forward. Watercolor is great on Warhammer acrylics, but yeah, when you're doing portraiture, for me anyway, having it dry so quickly means that whatever is there will dry quickly. I won't get a whole lot of time to blend it and work with it. So to me, I have to work quickly. So in this setting, what did I paint recently? Oh, that's right. I did. If you look on my Instagram, you'll see one of the most recent images I posted. Full artwork was black and white digital ink version of the Iron Studios sculpture of the Phantom and Devil, his dog. And I started doing a Warhammer paint, a Citadel paint. It's just acrylic over top of the faded out print of that ink, and that I tried to water down. I tried to treat it like Riccardo Federici, but it just kind of didn't really work well. Like something is like I'm watering this down. I'm thinking of this guy and how he does it, and it's just it's not. I don't think. And then yeah, I kept at it and like just trying to. It had some really nice textural, impressionistic. I do have it somewhere. Impressionistic feels to it. And where did I put it? I have a feeling it's just sitting nearby. It's all right. Yeah, anyway, it just did not make me happy. It's too much. Excuse me, sorry guys, too much paint. Too stiff, not blended well enough. Yeah, blah 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 blah. I just didn't like the pro. It's just, yeah, it was just like I love acrylic painting on Warhammer. I hate it on portraiture. So yeah, it was a big difference. So it's just funny, like to love a medium for art and see the qualities of it and really enjoy it, and then really not like it just because you change what you're working on. What you're trying to paint. A flat portrait? Horrible for me. Warhammer? Excellent. So I was going to try don't know if I was going to try oil painting over the Phantom just to compare apples to oranges, or Granny Smiths to red apples, and just if you want to say like, well, but painting's painting, right? You're still doing the same sort of strokes, but you're not not using the same liquefier. But I didn't do that, and I came across to this one. I was just like, you know what, I just want to do what I really want to do in life. I don't want to exacerbate myself trying to run too many tests on things. The data is good, does help. You know what I find it so weird is when you mix cadmium red and cadmium yellow together, and it doesn't turn into like a cadmium orange, it turns into baby poo yellow. Which is a color that you might be interested in using in all sorts of stuff, but sometimes it's really not useful at the time you're trying to go for vibrancy. Just mixing a little bit of red in there. I found the other day actually that red was a gateway for me into pushing human tones further into the nature of the skin and the construction of a person, because of that subdermal colors have that the blood, obviously blood cell and all that subdermal layers. So getting red onto the canvas at particular points was actually really expressive for what was needed. Like, we're just talking about colors, trying to find the right colors for what you're doing, and all of a sudden you get some sort of unlocking, like a key color in there somehow, and suddenly it unlocks what you were trying to do all along. And I had that moment, which is just over here on the right side of CAVILLRINE's face, which is just over here. I'm not light enough to be doing that. Where I was trying to get the right kind of shade in under the eye there, and I was messing around with it for a while. And I was just trying to get the right shade of orange and flesh tones, and it just wasn't working. And then I just decided to push it, take it to the limit. It's like, all right, let's just go and grab some red and just try and unlock this. Like, let's try and break it out of this funk that it's in. This wash of colors I'm having trouble believing in anymore, because they don't seem to be producing the kind of skin, the kind of effect that I'm looking for. And yeah, I put just some dank cadmium red right in the corner there and spilt it out, and suddenly it just awoken something in my eye. Like, it finally sort of convinced me there was something in that part of the spectrum in order to get that across the line. And then I was able to sort of tone it down from there a little bit and just go, okay, that's what I need to do. Now let's bring in some softer salmon sort of colors or whites. I would have brought white in and started to work with some of those other tones and mixtures, and then so worked out of that red in that case, and that's what really gave me a little bit of a breakthrough. Like at the moment here, if I just come through with some red here, I've got a little bit of yellow sitting in it, and I just put it in. It's kind of bloody and a bit too much, but it kicks it up a gear. It's like, yeah, get on over here, scorpion style. Get over here, or let's fight, let's tango, let's do some business. Just a side note also, I just got a color that I've like, oh cool, that color is going to be really handy to build up some of these other tones around the portrait. So I just use it while I have it on the brush just to work with it. And you might end up moving around the portrait instead of focusing on one area, but it just means that you've finally got that color you were looking for before, and it'll have the right effect on the rest of the body. I found that red was being a great way, the cadmium red has been a great way to convert sort of dead shadows into something that's got some blood in it, some flow. Some blood flow. Also trying to work on my sort of ambience in certain areas. It makes you really appreciate people who do really vibrant, like ethereal, like totally boosted pieces that have a lot of like glare built into the actual artwork itself. And you're like, man, when you start toying around with colors and paints and just trying to interpret things as you see them, and sort of get better at doing that, and then you realize that there's little side missions in terms of like, how do I blend these colors together? How do I get this? How do I get this working? You know what? And then you see someone else just do this sort of painting you wouldn't normally go for, not even personal taste or anything. And then you realize like, kind of like what they're doing is actually quite brilliant in terms of the control and the influence of their eye and their perspective and their view of building colors and controlling them and moving them around, and see that even people that have a very abstract and different perspective of how they like to paint compared to you actually have something to offer you, something for you to learn from. I started following some people who use a technique on a particular area in their artwork. I feel would actually help me learn a bit more about what I want to do, even though they're not really the type of artist that I would sort of follow or try to model myself off of. It's just like some part of it. Because I often sort of think a lot more in terms of absolutes. Like when you're trying to develop yourself as an artist, you're kind of, you're looking for something special that really ultimately does not exist yet, because you're it. Like you're trying to build yourself. It doesn't exist anywhere else unless you just want to copy someone. Finding yourself isn't anywhere else, except that it might be, you might consist of, you know, a number of things found in other people, all merged together and blended together in an interesting new composition of art. And so you kind of can get a little bit lost in trying to find someone else with the answer, someone else with an image of you, and too much of an image as well. So to that, I would say, careful not to depend on other artists to give you exactly what you're looking for. If you're trying to develop yourself, who is a different person and a unique person as well, just look at the bits and pieces that people do that you are connected to. You might not even follow that person forever. You just follow them for a time. There's cases where there's quite a few cases where, like in my life, there's a couple artists that I follow, I followed, and then I moved on from, because they're doing their thing and that's important for them, and I am off looking for what I need to find. And if I keep on taking too many numbers from them, I will possibly end up with some bad habits. Yeah, there's some artists that they're great. They're very competent. They're professional. They make a living out of doing what it is that they're doing and all that. But then you might just decide, like, just their style or the look or something, like it. They like to linger in a certain place that they feel great about, and they've got a great workflow for it or whatever. But for you, it's not enough. I don't even need to use the term, you know, it's too simple or it's too undeveloped or whatever, because that's not necessarily the point. That's not necessarily their point or their goal. It's just that they're happy with it and it's not enough for you. It could be more complicated. It could be less complicated than what you're trying to achieve. But it's not you. It's not what you're looking for. And you just not going to find that time. What did I read? I read an article. You're not going to find the time that you invest in that really returning in investment, right? So that's what I'm trying to say, if I just round that base. However, I read an article recently that was talking about how getting I'm sure I've got it on my history somewhere, about when people stick with something that's not working for them. And you might, from an outsider's perspective of discussing that as a topic, you might actually, oh, well, why would you do that? Like, why would you stick with something that's not working for you? But if you think about society and humanity and yourself, like, is that more realistic than, is that more common than not? Doing something over and over and over again that is not working for you. That's not good. And I'm not talking about, well, I can't do much right, my hands are tied and financially or whatever like that. Let's not go too holistic. I do like to consider many facets of life in order to help any facet of your life. But let's not go too deep there. Let's just stick with just a couple of examples. And I'm going to have a slight drink here of calm butcher, some booch. Up along those postbiotics. So, like, for example, you start playing a video game that you purchased and you're not enjoying it, but you've spent money on it, but you keep playing it to try and make something out of the money. It's not a moral issue, it's not an ethical issue, but there is a dynamic there which is, you know, and putting aside the fact that, you know, it's a video game, like, don't worry, like, am I really wasting my life playing a video? Let's just use that as an example for a second. You're doing something you're not quite happy with over and over, and you stick with it, trying to make something out of it. This article that I read was just sort of saying that you're, I wish I could recall. Sorry, I'm starting a conversation I might not be able to finish properly. It raised a point with me that it is not a necessary thing to do. It is something that you need to become aware of. I think that, to me, was the kind of the poignant part of it. Was, are you aware you're doing this thing that's not working for you, that you keep on doing? And why? Like, is there a cognitive reason in there somehow, or why that you are doing this thing on repeat that you don't enjoy? So if we're just talking about artwork, or we're talking about the process or something that, you know, you're doing, and it is actually such a powerful and such a helpful thing to actually just pivot, stop, pivot, adjust, question why, but also ask what do you want to do, and what do you think will work? If we just recap on the overarching topic here, it's the fork in the road where you have an influence, when you have artists that you're referencing, and then you just find that something that they're doing is no longer giving you a return on that investment, on that time I'm trying to understand and work with it. And there's a bit of a fork in the road, because ultimately what you're trying to establish in life is you, a unique person that has not become completely developed, as we all are at some point in our life. We're not as developed at a certain point, and other points we are, and then we discover we want to do more, and that requires more investigation and development and so forth, and rinse and repeat over and over again. So actually pivoting has this merit to it. The article was sort of meriting the person that was identifying this loss that they are trying to maintain. I think it was like it might have been a an article about the socio economic jam that we get ourselves in, even like societally, where we keep on repeating something that's not working, but we feel like if we don't, we're giving up on all the effort that we spent on trying to get so far. And I think also part of what the article was saying is that that's an illusion. And I know that we're talking very broadly here, but if you're an artist, that you'll understand that sometimes the sentiment is loud enough, like what I'm saying here, it is connecting to an artistic, interpretive, metaphorical, analogous part of you because you are an artist. And me saying these sweeping sort of ideas is enough to sort of get you just a bit of a handle or a bit of initiative, a wake-up call to say, hey, look, are you sticking with something and pushing on something that you keep on trying to be like that other artist, and you're becoming frustrated because they're doing really well or they seem to be progressing and you can't keep up, and you need a wake-up call to say, that's not your journey. They're not really enough for you. You're not getting enough out of who they are for who you want to be. And it's just that everyone needs a little wake up every now and then, just to go, look, it's really not the goal. Like, I know that we don't, as artists or as human beings, we don't really run our lives like businesses. But if we just take a little piece out of that business mindset and go, hey, look, the business has a goal, it has a mission statement, it has a purpose, it has a, some big plans or strategies. Well, can we at least take that really cool, good, well-intentioned idea from the business people and say, okay, well, the goal for me ultimately is to become the best version of myself, of hopefully that's an ethical or a righteous thing as well. That I'm encouraging a good person to become even more good for some reason. Just trying to draw in some of the wrinkles here that I'm looking at on the complicated components of someone's face. Yeah, sometimes there are influences and the things that we're very interested in at some point won't actually go far enough. It's not enough because it's not you. It's not who you want to be. So you got to take what you can from that experience or a piece of it, value that, remember why you brought it on, what's specific about that, particularly emotional, sentimental driver. When I came across Andrew Wilson, who's a tattoo artist, American tattoo artist, like 12, 13 years ago, he was doing colored pop culture face portraits like this, but in pencil, and they were incredibly detailed. It was absolutely amazing work, and I was so just instantly passionately inspired by his work. I just was like, I've got to give that a go. That looks awesome. And I started out very simple, just drawing eyes, which a lot of people do. A lot of people don't ever stop drawing eyes. They just draw eyes all the time. So that's where I got off that. That's where I got off that train. I was like, oh, I'm done with drawing eyes. And I went to just full portraits like this, but in pencil. And but it was that, oh, that looks great. I've got to do that. I've got to give that a go. That is really cool. That was a really poignant, very substantial, very well-meaning, heavily justified reason for me to do anything. Really, that was something that I needed to identify, that wasn't me just coming home, playing video games, eating dinner, browsing the web, and then falling asleep every night. On that repeat of, doing that, it's not working for me. I'm not really that happy or fulfilled, but I keep doing it, that kind of thing. So that's the story there. Where doing that wasn't fulfilling enough, but I kind of just didn't really have a clue what else to do until I saw someone's work that was so compelling. But the thing is, I wasn't trying to ride off of their success. I wasn't trying to get some a piece of the glory. And I was like, oh man, that's great business. I bet you that's valuable work or something like that. Never crossed my mind. Never crossed my mind to just like, oh wow, I think I could do that for money. I'll do portraits for money or something. Never crossed my mind. When I started, I did some charity fundraisers and that, which didn't work out actually much. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, that's a different thing. But that was just business stuff. That wasn't like international or online or anything. It's just at my workplace, which was not all that successful. That's fine. But it wasn't my motivation to start with. My motivation was pure intention. It was just looking at what this guy had done artistically, and this internal part of me that I did not know was there jumped out at it and said it wanted to do it. It wanted to give it a go. So that is something I think humanity often ignores a lot of. They're not paying attention to that small voice. They're not paying attention to that creative artistic urge that has something to offer you, and something to offer the world as well, like something to share, something that you want to share, something that you feel quite passionate about. Hence why I'm doing streaming as well, because I'm kind of just going, well, just find my way through this and then I'll share it with people who might be interested as well. Like, why not? I don't even really care how popular it is or whatever. It's just that one person that jumps on and is like, this is where I need to be right now, is just having some influence from this other guy or from this stream or whatever. It's where I need to be right now. And I just want to do what you're doing in my own way and work through that and find it as well. And then you might part ways again. It's not necessarily selfish at all. It's just you're looking to build yourself, and that's a journey. Just trying to blend a bit of this face over. here. I don't know if this technique is right. I'm not even using a stance, my stance thing here, because I'm so consumed with the treatment. Of the paint on the page that I'm not really sure if I'm using the right techniques, painting techniques. I'll find my way through. That was a big part of the reason why I started streaming as well, is going, well, I like doing it. I'm sure other people like doing it. Let's just share it together. But I'm not going to wait until I'm a pro. I'm just going to share the process, because I'll find my way there, and I'm sure people will connect to that whole idea of sharing something. En route. So literally, I am literally doing what I was talking about by saying, pursuing, actively responding to that that excitement and that feeling of doing something important to me that I identified important. It's very dangerous to hide that away. It's very, yeah, it's very dangerous to go, oh look, I'll just protect myself from jumping ahead, and I'll just hold off for now until I'm better at it. And often, like, we don't do art or do something that we really find fulfilling because we want to protect that thing that we have not yet done yet. So it's something we care about. We don't want to fail, so we don't do it in order to keep it suspended in our mind as this thing that has perfect potential without even doing anything. If I don't do it, it will constantly remain as this thing that could work out absolutely perfectly and be very good, and I could be very good at doing it, so long as I don't do it. It always has that potential of being great. You don't ever do something and you actually lose from that. You might not feel it, but you're actually grieving. You're actually a little saddened because you're actually not pursuing something that's very unique to you and actually substantially fulfilling. That it's actually quite important to you to do it. But yeah, you're not, because you're trying to protect it from being ruined with failure. That might not be you, but it has certainly been me. Where I don't do something in order to protect it from me screwing it up. And when you're someone with something you really care about and you're not doing that thing, you are kind of missing out on it, you know, to a similar degree that if you lived your entire life holding your breath, you know, like taking a deep breath, and then holding your breath so you didn't take in too much oxygen, and then you exhale and take another breath and you hold in for, and you breathe as little as possible because you're trying to prevent yourself from experiencing too much of a good thing or too much of the right thing for you. And that's what it's like when you hold off on doing something that is important to you, because you're trying to protect it from your failure. So the best thing to do is to start small, start somewhere, start doing it and doing it as often as you can, and work through the growing pains and the challenging points, the difficult points. I am using my finger. You'll notice already I'm using my finger a fair bit to blend the paint. It's just where I feel like I haven't quite done a good enough job with the pencil, with the paintbrush. And I need to sort of either reset, erase, adjust, fix, blend better, block it out a little more, so I convert my strokes to more of a blocking out sort of effect. So it just sort of fills in areas with that general color and blends it together, so I can come back and refine that. How we go for time? Excuse me. It's almost midnight here, and I've got to be up in 8 hours. Coincidentally, to talk to my bank about getting a cash extension on my mortgage so that I can fund my new studio development and renovations. So we're kind of most of the way through tearing out all the floor, all the facilities, or the older facilities, and the fittings and bits and pieces, and with a bit more to go on that. And then I will be able to get the cash organized from the bank, and then extension, which is an expense, but when you calculate your risks, it's more about calculated risks become investments. They get converted when you put yourself within the right limits and right opportunities. So it converts risks to, not all the time, but that's what we're talking to the bank tomorrow about, converting a risk to an investment by building on our budget. Let's get some darker colors in here. Let's build out that. Man, yeah, that's looking better. It really does help to stand back and look at your artwork. I can look up the screen, the stream itself, to get a bit of an idea of how it's developing. It's also good coming back a day later. So that you can sort of look at, or the next morning, so you can look at what on earth you were thinking the night before. Sometimes, yeah, towards the end you get a little bit tired and you start to make mistakes and you start to cut corners and do all sorts of stuff. And you can't quite see it, and then yeah, you need to sleep and some fresh eyes, and that really does make a difference. Just doing some smudgy blocking out here. I can tidy this up later for sure. needs it's a little red. You want to desaturate something, you'll put black and white into it to desaturate something. It creates a gray, which has got no tonal values to it at all, no color. So if you mix gray in order to make something lighter, or mix black to make it darker, or mix white to make it lighter color, you're also going to drag the color out of the the hue right out of it as well. Like, you suck the life out of it. So, you know, it's not good to make colors darker. If you want a color darker, it's not good to make it darker using black. Use opposite color, a darker opposite color, and what that does is it maintains the color value, the richness of the color as it gets darker. So if you want to make red darker, put some blue in it or some green in it. It will get dark real quick, and it might go brown, it might go purple a bit more, but it will still have a tonal value to that is got, it has color in it. It's darker, but it's got color, as opposed to if you just mix black with it, it loses the color. It doesn't go darker, it goes darker and desaturates it. There are numerous YouTube tutorials on that. We can look at that as well, but Florence Fage, a young French portraiture artist, oil painter, and that he has created a few tutorials on mixing colors, and using them to get darker colors. Like what happens when you use black to make a color darker as opposed to the complementary opposite color, and why that's kind of not really useful using black. It made sense to me quite quickly, even though I didn't know it. But when I saw that tutorial on color and values and tones, it made a lot of sense to me very quickly, because I'd worked with color for decades doing photoshopping and digital art, and then all of a sudden seeing this guy going, hey, when you mix colors together in a digital space, you're not really necessarily mixing the pixels, the values and the hues of those pixels together to create a new color. You're putting them on top of one another at all sorts of different settings. So it's depending on how you've structured what you're doing, and if you're immediately influencing the pixels and the raster view, or if you're but in reality, when you're working on something like oil paint, when the colors, the actual substances are mixing together and creating a literal new color. There's this chemistry, and there's this whole sort of physics sort of that goes on. It's like physics comes into play, where that color passes through, when white passes through that color, and vice versa, and that it's changing the qualities of that color quite drastically in a very particular spectrum, one that is very reliable and that you can understand once you work it out. So yeah, when I saw Florent Fage going, okay, let's mix red and blue together to get black, or a dark color, so you see down the middle there where it has mixed together a little bit, it's very dark, and even up here, you know, all of a sudden you're like, right, I can see how it's darker but still has tonal value in all of that. Okay, I get it now, that makes sense. But then look, immediately when you see black mixed with red, it goes like a grayish red, sort of browny red, grayish red color, and it gets darker and darker into this. And that might be the tone you're looking for. You might be looking for a desaturated red. It's really not talking about what you should and shouldn't do. It's just talking about what do you want to do, because the results are going to be drastically different if you're doing something the opposite of what will actually happen. So that was very helpful to see paints get darker in two different ways, by either mixing black or mixing the complementary color on the other side of the spectrum. I'm using, this brush, this AK Interactive, is the 2.0. So I think it's like 2 millimeters at the top and goes down to a 0. It's like, as in like a point. I could be wrong about that way that's structured, but it is a 2.0 anyway. So if you want it, it's just literally, it's just a model, a miniature model paint brush that I've been using the whole time. I've painted this entire guy with this one pencil, one paintbrush, because I knew it would slow me down and force me to take my time, rather than, you can block out with a larger paintbrush and just do everything in larger strokes a lot quicker, and block it out and then build and refine it from there. You know, you gotta know. I think sometimes it's good just to sort of pull back a little bit on areas you know you're going to have poor control over. Like if you know you're going to be a little crazy somehow about going too far somehow, maybe just dial it back a little bit in order to protect the outcome, or the process more than anything. It's actually just making sure that the process is going to go at the pace that you need. And like I said, when I ruined some of my paintings in the past, is because I was putting too much paint on too quickly, and having a lot of trouble trying to work with them after that point. So having a smaller paintbrush for me is like an opportunity to slow me down and get me to focus. The other thing too is that it's very dangerous to get caught up in just doing one area to refine. Like I'm floating the idea of doing another project where I do everything with the size that a bigger brush that gets a smaller and smaller brush, and every pass with each brush has a certain amount of detail, a certain amount of focus in that with that brush. So I only work at a certain amount of detail for the entire portrait at a time, without advancing into finer detail. Because what can happen quite easily is you start, I've seen artists do this, I've definitely done it, people who get choked up and don't ever actually move forward, is because they will start a large portrait and then they will want to make sense of it. So they will spend ages on one part of it, refining it, and fixing it and changing it and refining it. And then after they've spent hours or days doing this on one small area, they can't calculate all the maneuvers they've done on just that one section in order to replicate that art quality and that process and to actually enjoy it across the rest of the portrait at the same ratio, the same rate, and the same attention to detail on some unknown arbitrary amount of detail they've invested into it. And so they get stuck on this one area trying to perfect it, and then create this massive bottleneck where there's all this work they need to put in now into the rest of it, and they don't finish the project. It just doesn't go anywhere, it just stops. And so I would like to focus on avoiding that by using a pass system, sort of where I just go over the whole thing with a particular size brush. And do only a certain amount of detail at a time while I am still getting the most out of each pass. But yeah, protecting overdoing it, protecting myself from overdoing it, and also still keeping a progress on it. So this is a little bit more like how I'm doing this is a little bit more discovery sort of thing, where I'm just very much just playing with the oops, there's some white on that from somewhere, playing with the paintbrush and the process, and just trying to find out what process I'm interested in, and where I'm making mistakes, where my perceptions are about how this is supposed to work. And I've got quite a rich palette here for this guy, very very tanned. I might look at toning it back somehow, but yeah, what I should do is to tone back the saturation on the reference image as well, just to help me out. But I'm going to finish up, guys. I'm going to finish up. I just needed to run a test ring. No one's popped up, no one's talking. Maybe someone's looking. I can't see, I can't tell at the moment. I'm just looking at my streaming platform here. Oh, it's had 2 views. That was probably me. And people will probably catch this later. If you do catch it later, I hope it's a help for you. I hope for it's some company or whatever. At least it's given me a chance to work through this. The streaming process again, as while I'm actually doing something else that's quite new. So I really appreciate anyone who stops by and takes the time to spend some time watching the video and getting something out of it. I'm just going to put my palette up there for a second, and I'll come back and at some point and do some more. I'm thinking about coming back on Sunday, but I can't predict the future either. So we'll see how we go. I'd like to continue moving forward on this one for sure, whether I'm live or not. I will post the progress on my Instagram at least once it's done, so you can see where I got up to anyway. So that's always something you can look forward to, even if I don't stream. Okay, guys. Well, I really appreciate it. Keep an eye out. You know, subscribe and follow, whatever, if you want to catch me in the future. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again real soon.